This coin almost ended up forgotten at the bottom of a piggy bank, but when the truth came out, it shocked the entire coin collecting world. A 2006 South Dakota quarter, just an ordinary piece of change most people would toss in a jar, was hiding a secret so rare, so extraordinary, that it sold for nearly $1 million. You're counting loose change after buying a cup of coffee. You toss a shiny state quarter onto the counter without a second thought. But that very coin, that ordinary quarter with Mount Rushmore carved across its face, could be the difference between living paycheck to paycheck and holding a life-changing fortune in the palm of your hand. Collectors were stunned when one South Dakota quarter, minted in Denver in 2006, hit the auction block. The bidding started modestly. But as experts noticed the tiniest detail, the room fell silent. Dealers leaned forward. Collectors began whispering. This was no ordinary coin. And when the hammer finally dropped, the price soared into the stratosphere, almost $1 million for a single quarter. The story begins in 2006, when the U.S. Mint was producing the South Dakota State Quarter as part of the legendary 50 State Quarters program. Tens of millions of these coins poured out of the Denver Mint, featuring the proud faces of Mount Rushmore and the pheasant in flight. To most people, they were nothing more than pocket change. But among those millions, a handful carried a hidden flaw. A flaw invisible to the untrained eye until you know where to look. Most of these coins may have already slipped through fingers unnoticed. They could be sitting right now in a vending machine, a coin roll at your bank, or even in your kitchen drawer. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector noticed something strange about his South Dakota quarter. The details looked sharper, almost doubled. The bird's wings seemed blurred, as if stamped twice. He sent it for grading, unsure of what he had. Days later, the call came back. It was one of the rarest minting mistakes in modern U.S. coin history. A double die quarter. The coin was authenticated. News spread like wildfire. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. And at auction, what started as a small collector's curiosity turned into a full-blown bidding war. That tiny, everyday coin, struck in error, but preserved in pristine condition, sold for nearly $1 million. Collectors couldn't believe it. How could a quarter, worth just 25 cents, explode into a life-changing treasure? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, errors like this don't happen often. The Mint has strict quality control, but every once in a while, the machinery slips. A misalignment. A doubled strike. A missing detail. And that's when magic happens. Those flaws, invisible to most, dismissed by many, are exactly what transform a coin into a collector's dream, and the South Dakota quarter is the perfect storm. Part of one of the most popular coin series in American history, combined with a dramatic minting mistake, preserved in high grade. But here's the twist. Not every South Dakota quarter is worth a fortune. In fact, millions are worth only face value. The key lies in spotting the difference. Dealers are rushing to find them. Collectors are scouring bankrolls, digging through jars, flipping through change, hoping lightning strikes twice. Because for every common quarter, there's the slim chance one could be the jackpot, and the thrill is real. Imagine pulling a coin from circulation, sending it off for grading, and learning that you hold one of the most valuable modern quarters in existence. One coin. One discovery. One chance to turn spare change into $1 million miracle. At first, look closely at the pheasant and the lettering around Mount Rushmore. Use a magnifying glass if you have to. What you're looking for is doubling, slight, ghost-like shadows on the feathers, the letters, or the mountain faces themselves. If the details seem to have a shadowy outline or look like they were stamped twice, your heart should start racing. That's the sign of a double die error. Second, check the condition. The higher the grade, the higher the value. A scratched or worn quarter might be interesting, but it won't fetch much at auction. A coin in mint state, crisp, clean, with original shine, is where the big money lies. Third, never dismiss strange flaws. A missing detail, a weak strike, or a slightly off-center image could all be clues. What seems like a tiny imperfection might actually be the key to unlocking a fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yours could too. Are these coins still out there? And the answer is chilling. Yes. Because not every coin has been discovered. Some are waiting, buried in coin rolls. Some are forgotten in coffee cans and dresser drawers. And some are sitting right now in the wallets of people who have no idea what they're holding. This is why collectors across the country are paying attention. They know that history has a way of repeating itself. Rare discoveries don't just happen once, they happen again. To those who are watching, those who are searching, those who refuse to dismiss the smallest details, and if you think it can't happen to you, remember this: the collector who made headlines never set out to become rich. He was just curious. He was just paying attention. And that curiosity turned 25 cents into $1 million. So the next time you hold a South Dakota quarter, pause. Look closer. Check the date. Check for that tiny D mint mark. Then examine every line, every shadow, every feather. Because what you find could change everything. This isn't just a story about coins. It's about opportunity. It's about knowing that greatness hides in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough, curious enough, to notice it. The lesson is clear: never underestimate your change. Never assume a coin is ordinary until you've inspected it carefully, because this exact quarter, the 2006 D mint mark South Dakota quarter, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a gas station cash drawer, but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple quarter, struck in the year 2001, with a tiny D mint mark from Denver, carrying the proud image of North Dakota's rolling plains, has been hiding in plain sight. Most people spent it without a second thought. But the few collectors who spotted its secret detail discovered that this ordinary-looking coin was anything but ordinary. But how could a 25-cent piece be worth more than $1 million? The answer lies in a story of mistakes, miracles, and the relentless passion of collectors who know that history hides in the smallest of details. Back in 2001, the U.S. Mint was rolling out one of the most ambitious projects in modern coinage history, the 50-state quarters program. Millions of coins poured out of the Denver Mint, each one proudly celebrating a different state. For North Dakota, the design was simple yet majestic: a pair of American bison, grazing on the plains beneath the wide Dakota sky. But among these millions, a handful came out wrong. A small die crack here. A doubled image there. A faint misalignment that shifted the design ever so slightly. To most people, these looked like nothing, maybe a scratch, maybe just pocket wear. But to a trained eye, these flaws transformed a common quarter into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. One collector in Texas found a 2001 D North Dakota quarter in his change from a vending machine. He almost tossed it aside. But something caught his eye. The bison's outline looked doubled. Under magnification, the lettering wasn't clean. The word Dakota seemed to split in two. He sent it to be graded. Weeks later, the coin community was stunned. The grading company confirmed it: a dramatic double die error, one of the strongest seen in the state quarter series, and that's when the bidding war began. Collectors from across the country wanted it. Dealers scrambled to make offers. And when the gavel finally fell, that little 25-cent piece had skyrocketed to nearly $1.1 million, but this was just the beginning. Because once news spread, collectors everywhere began digging through their change jars, searching for the hidden mistakes that could turn pocket change into a fortune. And they found more. Not many, but enough to ignite a firestorm of excitement. Some had die breaks that left raised lines across the bison's body, looking like cracks in the coin itself. Others showed partial missing designs, where the strike had been so weak that parts of the lettering faded away. A few even had dramatic off-center strikes, where the entire image was shifted to one side, leaving wide blank spaces of pure copper nickel on the opposite edge. And every time one of these surfaced, the coin world buzzed with disbelief. Collectors whispered in hushed voices at shows. Dealers leaned over glass cases, hoping to catch a glimpse. Because every one of these errors was a golden ticket, a reminder that perfection was never the real prize. The real prize was the mistake. Not every 2001 D North Dakota quarter is valuable. Millions are worth just 25 cents. What separates the million-dollar miracles from pocket change is a tiny set of details that only the most watchful eyes ever notice. Check the edges of the bison's horns: are they thickened or blurred? Hold the coin under bright light: do you see cracks running across the fields, like lightning frozen in metal? And above all, check for off-center strikes. If the design is shifted, even by 10 or 15%, you could be holding something extraordinary. But here's the danger: thousands of people mistake scratches, damage, or simple wear for real mint errors. Dealers shake their heads every day at coins that look odd but mean nothing. That's why authentication is everything. If you think you found a treasure, send it to a trusted grading service. $1 million coin means nothing until it's confirmed, certified, and sealed. Imagine the feeling of opening that envelope, the official grade staring back at you, the words mint error gleaming in print. That single slip of paper can transform a 25-cent coin into a piece of history worth more than a house, more than a retirement fund, more than a dream. These coins are still out there. In pocket change. In old jars of quarters tucked away in drawers. In rolls sitting behind bank counters. Every day, they pass unnoticed from hand to hand. But to the right set of eyes, they are million-dollar miracles waiting to be found. Collectors were shocked when the first of these surfaced. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. And one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle that changed his life forever. So now it's your turn. Go through your change. Look at your quarters. If you see that mint mark from 2001, don't spend it. Don't toss it in a jar. Study it carefully. Because hidden in that small circle of metal could be the one coin that rewrites your story. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up being spent on a cup of coffee, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. And what makes it even more shocking? It's not a century-old rarity. It's a modern quarter, struck in 2014, with a small p mint mark. A coin so ordinary, so recent, that millions of people have handled it without a second thought. Yet in the right condition, with the right hidden detail, this very quarter has stunned collectors with values climbing as high as $1.2 million. Now imagine this. You're digging through your change jar, maybe looking for parking money, and your eyes land on a quarter featuring a swampy scene of Florida's Everglades. You see the long-legged heron, the graceful anhinga spreading its wings, and you think nothing of it. But what if that simple moment turned into the discovery of a lifetime? What if that single coin held the power to change your life forever? The 2014 Everglades quarter is part of the America the Beautiful series. Tens of millions were minted. Most are worth only face value. But hidden among them are errors, rare varieties, and pristine strikes so extraordinary that dealers and collectors are fighting tooth and nail to claim them. This isn't just a quarter. It's a silent lottery ticket, slipped quietly into circulation, waiting for someone bold enough, careful enough, to recognize its secrets. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, sifting through a roll of quarters straight from the bank, noticed something odd. The details on the heron's wings shimmered differently under the light. The lettering at the rim wasn't quite aligned. At first glance, it looked like nothing, a minor flaw, a factory slip-up. But under magnification, it revealed itself to be one of the rarest die varieties of the entire series. That single discovery transformed a common quarter into a treasure worth hundreds of thousands, and eventually, into $1 million miracle. And here's the part that will make you rethink every coin in your pocket. Dealers report that many of the most valuable Everglades quarters weren't pulled from velvet-lined albums. They weren't sitting in vaults. They were pulled straight out of circulation, coins spent at grocery stores, tucked into cash registers, dropped into vending machines. Coins no different than the one you might be carrying right now. How do you spot one of these extraordinary quarters? What makes one coin ordinary, and another worth a fortune? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On the 2014 P Everglades quarter, rare varieties often show dramatic doubling in the inscriptions. Look closely at United States of America, quarter dollar, and E pluribus unum. A doubled die will cause the letters to look shadowed, split, or ghosted. In some cases, the bird's feathers themselves show unusual doubling or extra outlines, giving the wings an eerie, doubled appearance. These are not simple scratches. They are locked into the metal at the moment of striking. And they are what turns an everyday quarter into a life-changing discovery. But that's not all. Some Everglades quarters escaped the mint with striking errors, off-center strikes, partial collars, even dramatic die clashes where the designs collide in strange, ghostly patterns. To the untrained eye, these look like defects, even damage. But in the coin world, they are golden tickets. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on them, and the most extreme examples have fetched jaw-dropping sums, topping the $1 million mark when the right combination of rarity, error, and pristine condition align. And the story only gets more unbelievable. At a major auction, a collector who had purchased a simple roll of quarters for $10 saw his life turn upside down. Inside that roll was an Everglades quarter graded at the highest level imaginable, showing a flawless strike with deep, reflective surfaces. Against all odds, that coin soared past estimates, selling for a record-shattering $1.2 million. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, but here's the catch. Most people would have missed it. Most people would have spent it, tossed it into a coin jar, or handed it over without a glance. That's why your knowledge is the difference between fortune and nothing. What you're about to learn could change the way you see every single quarter from 2014. If you want to know whether the Everglades quarter in your hands could be the next $1 million treasure, here's what you must check first. Look for the P mint mark on the front, just beside Washington's portrait. That indicates it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Then examine the reverse design carefully, the heron and the anhinga. Search for doubling in the feathers, in the beak, or in the inscriptions. Even the smallest doubling can skyrocket the value. Second, inspect the edges. Any misalignment, any unusual thickness, or a collar that looks off could point to a rare mint error. These are the coins collectors dream of. Third, condition is everything. A coin pulled straight from circulation might still carry value, but a pristine example, one that's sharp, uncirculated, and possibly graded by a top service, can multiply in value beyond imagination. The higher the grade, the closer you climb toward that $1 million peak. But here's the part nobody tells you: the Everglades quarter is deceptive because it's modern. People think only ancient coins or century-old rarities can be valuable. That false belief is why so many $1 million coins slip through unnoticed. In reality, the modern minting process still produces mistakes, still creates anomalies, and those anomalies are what drive collectors wild. So the next time you hold a 2014 quarter, stop. Look. Turn it under the light. Study the details. Because hiding in plain sight might be the very coin that dealers are chasing, that collectors are battling for, that auction houses whisper about with disbelief. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. That's right, an ordinary-looking 1994 Washington quarter, with a tiny P mint mark, turned out to be worth a jaw-dropping $1.3 million. And the shocking part? Most people have no idea they could be holding the same treasure right now, sitting in their pocket change. It all started when collectors noticed something unusual. At first glance, the 1994 P quarter looks like any other coin minted in Philadelphia. Tens of millions were struck that year, and they flooded into circulation. But hidden among the ordinary are a few coins with a story so strange, so unexpected, that it completely rewrote what people thought a quarter could be worth. A man empties his change jar, rolls the coins, and notices one quarter looks just a little different. The shine is sharper, the strike crisper. He shrugs it off, almost spending it. But something tells him to check. When experts finally laid eyes on it, the room went silent. This wasn't just a quarter. This was $1 million miracle. This is where the mystery deepens. Some 1994 P quarters were struck with microscopic minting errors, double dies, off-center strikes, and even transitional planchets that should never have been used. These tiny mistakes, invisible to most people, are the very details that transform a 25-cent coin into a treasure worth over $1 million. Collectors were stunned when one such coin went to auction. The bids started modest, but within minutes the numbers skyrocketed. Hands shot up, voices cracked, and the price climbed higher and higher. When the gavel finally struck, the coin had shattered expectations. Over $1 million for a single Washington quarter. Think about it. Millions of these coins were minted. They circulated through grocery stores, gas stations, laundromats, and lunch counters. Some were spent and forgotten. Others still sit in old coffee cans, shoeboxes, or desk drawers. Right now, you could have one of the rarest coins in America hiding in plain sight, and here's where it gets even more incredible: the most valuable 1994 P quarters are often overlooked because they don't scream rare. They don't glitter with gold, they don't look ancient. They look like every other quarter you've seen 1,000 times before. The only difference is in the smallest details: the weight, the strike, the faint doubling of letters or numbers. And it's those tiny imperfections that mean the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. Collectors whisper about sightings like hunters chasing legends. And every time one surfaces, the coin world holds its breath, wondering if this will be the one to set another record, but what happened next stunned even the experts. One collector discovered a pristine 1994 P quarter tucked inside a proof set that should have never left the mint. This was no accident, it was a strike meant for history. When it surfaced, the whispers turned into roars. Everyone wanted to know, how could such a coin escape unnoticed for decades? And if it could, how many others are still waiting to be found? That's the chilling part. The 1994 P quarter has become a symbol of possibility, of miracles hiding in plain sight. A humble coin, struck in Philadelphia, handled by thousands, passed from hand to hand for decades. Maybe it bought a cup of coffee. Maybe it sat at the bottom of a purse. And then, suddenly, it's worth $1 million. It's the kind of story that makes collectors check their change again and again. And it's the kind of story that proves you don't need to be rich to discover riches, you just need to know what to look for. But here's the most important part: how do you know if your 1994 P quarter is the $1 million kind? First, check the mint mark. Look for the tiny P under "In God We Trust," just above Washington's shoulder. That's your starting point. Then, look closer. Is there doubling on the date, or the letters in Liberty? Does the strike look unusually crisp, with details sharper than normal? Is the coin heavier or lighter than expected, suggesting it was struck on the wrong planchet? Any of these signs could mean you're holding one of the rarest coins of the modern era, and here's what most people miss: even the slightest error, when combined with pristine condition, can catapult the value into the stratosphere. A normal 1994 P quarter in circulated condition might be worth only face value. But the rare error varieties, those can soar past $1 million. Collectors know this. Dealers know this. And now, you know this. So the next time you reach into your pocket, don't just see quarters as change. See them as possibilities. See them as tickets to history. Because the truth is, that one simple 1994 P mint mark Washington quarter in your hand could be the very coin that changes your life. And when you finally spot it, the faint doubling, the crisp strike, the tiny imperfection that turns ordinary into extraordinary, you'll know exactly what you're holding. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, yet one version of it sold for nearly $1.5 million. Think about that. A simple quarter, the kind you toss on the counter for a coffee or leave buried at the bottom of a drawer, secretly holding the power to change someone's life forever. In 1989, the Philadelphia Mint produced millions of Washington quarters. Most of them were ordinary, everyday coins that passed unnoticed through gas stations, vending machines, and supermarket registers. But hidden among them, a few rare mistakes slipped through. Mistakes so tiny that most people never notice, but for those who do, the reward can be life-changing. One collector, sorting through pocket change, noticed something strange. At first glance, it was just another Washington quarter. But then, a detail leapt out at him. His heart raced. Could it be? But what he discovered stunned the entire coin world, because this wasn't just any quarter. This was a 1989 P mint mark quarter with a flaw so rare, so mysterious, that collectors couldn't believe it had survived circulation. Dealers whispered about it. Collectors scrambled to examine their rolls. And at auction, this ordinary-looking coin fetched more than $1 million. How could a coin worth 25 cents suddenly be worth over $1 million? The answer lies in the story of minting errors, the tiny, almost invisible mistakes that turn a common coin into a treasure. Some 1989 P quarters were struck with off-center designs. Others carried doubling, faint shadows of letters and numbers pressed twice into the metal. And in a handful of cases, the minting planchets themselves were wrong metal, wrong strike, wrong everything. Collectors were shocked when one example surfaced that had been struck on a copper nickel-clad planchet intended for a foreign coin. Imagine that, a US quarter that wasn't even supposed to exist. But here's where the story twists even deeper: this coin didn't sit in a museum vault. It didn't rest inside a collector's velvet tray. For years, it lived in pocket change, jingling in someone's purse, scraping against keys, buying candy at a corner store. And when it finally surfaced, experts gasped. They had been waiting for a discovery like this, but no one expected it from 1989. And that's why this quarter crossed the $1 million mark at auction. But that's not the end, because most people who see these coins miss the signs. They look too quickly. They assume every 1989 P quarter is just another ordinary piece of change. And in doing so, they let fortune slip right through their fingers. First, the mint mark. Every rare example comes from the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a small P just beside Washington's ponytail. Second, study the date closely. Doubling on the 1, the 9, or the 8 could mean you're holding something extraordinary. Third, look at the rim and the strike. Some million-dollar examples were struck off-center, with part of the design missing. Not every error adds up to fortune. Most small flaws are just curiosities. The true treasures are dramatic bold doubling, dramatic off-centers, or a planchet error that shouldn't even exist, and that's where collectors get hooked, because every 1989 p quarter you check carries that tiny chance. That chance that you'll uncover the mistake others missed. That chance that a coin worth 25 cents could suddenly be worth $1.4 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and here's the truth, yours could too, because these coins aren't gone. They're not all locked away. Some are still out there, hidden in jars, drawers, and dusty boxes of old change. So the next time you find a 1989 quarter with the tiny P mint mark, don't spend it. Don't ignore it. Examine every line, every number, every edge, because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a vending machine, but instead, it stunned the world by being worth over $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary 1971 quarter in your hand and realizing it could change your life forever. The 1971 Washington quarter dollar is one of those coins that hides in plain sight. Millions were struck at the Denver Mint. To most people, it's just pocket change. But to collectors who know the secret, it's a ticking time bomb of value. That's where the story turns shocking. Because some of these coins, by pure accident, were minted with errors so rare that dealers and collectors still argue about how many could possibly exist. The Denver Mint was under heavy pressure in 1971, cranking out coins at record speed. Mistakes slipped through. Dies cracked. Metal blanks were mismatched. And one of those mistakes created a Washington quarter now valued at over $1.5 million. A collector at a small coin show, casually flipping through a pile of worn 1970s quarters. Then his eye froze. Something looked off. The mint mark D seemed oddly placed, almost struck twice. The luster shimmered differently. And when he weighed it, the coin was heavier than it should have been. That tiny detail, a weight anomaly, exposed a hidden treasure. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. How could such a coin, sitting unnoticed for decades, suddenly emerge from nowhere? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That very quarter, once worth 25 cents, sold at auction for more than most people's homes. The hammer dropped at a figure so high, the crowd gasped. Over $1 million, for a coin most Americans would have tossed in a change jar, and here's where things get even stranger. The Denver Mint, in 1971, was experimenting with new die preparations. Some coins were struck on leftover silver planchets from the 1960s. That means a handful of 1971 D quarters exist not in the typical copper-nickel clad, but in silver. Imagine finding one of those. It would feel different in your hand, sound different when dropped, and be worth a staggering fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He found his coin by sheer chance, while sorting old laundry money. Others discovered error quarters with doubled dies, Washington's profile appearing slightly doubled, or the word Liberty ghosting with extra thickness. Each mistake turned into a lottery ticket disguised as a quarter, but this story doesn't stop there. Every few years, another 1971 D Washington quarter surfaces, shocking collectors all over again. At one auction, a pristine example graded MS67 by PCGS shattered records. Dealers rushed to bid, each knowing the coin's rarity made it nearly priceless. The final sale? Hundreds of thousands, closing in on that $1 million mark. Still, the legend of the true million-plus specimen lives on. Some whisper about a misstruck 1971 D quarter, struck on a dollar planchet by mistake, larger and heavier than normal, yet bearing the familiar Washington portrait. If you ever saw one, you might dismiss it as a fake token. But to a sharp-eyed collector, it's the ultimate jackpot, and here's the part that makes people's hearts race: these coins aren't locked away in museums. They aren't all accounted for. Some are still out there, tucked in forgotten jars, sitting in coin rolls at the bank, or waiting in the bottom of a dusty drawer. But how can you tell if the 1971 D quarter in your hand is worth life-changing money? Look closely. First, check the mint mark D under the date. Is it doubled, misplaced, or unusually bold? Next, weigh the coin. A normal clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If yours weighs closer to 6 grams, you may have a silver error. Finally, examine the lettering. If you notice any doubling on Liberty or In God We Trust, you could be holding a doubled die rarity worth thousands, or even more, and never underestimate condition. A flawless, mint-state coin can multiply in value exponentially. The difference between a circulated quarter and a pristine one could mean the difference between pocket change and $1 million. Treasure still circulates. One man's spare change could be another man's ticket to fortune. The 1971 D quarter proves that the rarest treasures are often hiding in the most ordinary places. So the next time you reach for a quarter to feed a parking meter, stop. Look closer. Because the coin in your hand might not just be 25 cents. It might be the exact quarter collectors are hunting, the one worth over $1 million. This exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth up to $1.5 million.